They said it was suicide.
They were right.
The year is 1177. A kingdom of Jerusalem stands on the brink of annihilation. To the south, the Sultan Saladin. He commands more than 20,000 men. He rules Egypt and Syria. He has not yet known defeat. To the north, a boy, 16 years old. His strength is already fading. Logic says this ends quickly. History says Jerusalem falls. But Baldwin IV does not retreat. He rides out to strike first. This is the Battle of Montgizard. And this is how a small, disciplined force broke a far larger army in a single afternoon. By the late 12th century, the Crusader states were surviving, not expanding. The age of conquest was over. Now it was about holding ground. Then came Saladin. Not merely a commander, but a unifier. He unified Egypt and Syria, and Jerusalem was next. When he invaded in November 1177, he brought an army built to crush resistance by sheer mass. Standing in his way was King Baldwin IV. Jerusalem had no other sons. So the dying king mounted his horse and rode to meet the invasion. Saladin made a mistake. He believed the numbers were enough. He assumed Baldwin would remain behind the walls of Ascalon. It would have been the rational choice. So the army advanced inland, and discipline loosened. Units spread thin to forage, baggage slowed movement, formations stretched across the countryside. The campaign began to feel secure. But Baldwin did not stay behind walls. He gathered roughly 300 heavy cavalry, along with several thousand infantry, and broke out of Ascalon. He moved north, using speed and terrain to conceal his advance. While Saladin believed resistance would remain passive, Baldwin maneuvered to intercept. And at its head rode a king already dying. Leprosy does not kill quickly. It weakens muscle, it destroys nerves, it steals control slowly. By 16, Baldwin's strength was already fading, but not his judgment. Riding beside him were the Knights Templar and other seasoned heavy cavalry. They carried the true cross. On the afternoon of November 25th, Saladin's forces were crossing uneven ground near Montgizard. They were spread thin, not yet formed for battle. Then they heard it. Hooves. Baldwin's army appeared on high ground. Below them lay a host numbering more than 20,000. With him rode roughly 300 heavy knights. Behind them stood several thousand infantry. But it was the cavalry that would decide what followed. 300 armoured riders against an army many times their size. There was no prolonged debate, no negotiation.
Form the line! Shields locked! Lances lowered!
The advance began at a trot, then a canter, then a controlled gallop, fast enough to deliver shock, slow enough to stay together. 600 tons of armoured mass. Disorder does not survive shock. The forward elements of Saladin's army had little space to manoeuvre. The collision was violent. Lances struck. Front ranks collapsed. Momentum carried the wedge forward. Once cohesion faltered, panic spread. And in armies that large, panic moves faster than orders. Numerical superiority means little when it cannot be organised. The invasion dissolved into retreat. By sunset, Saladin's army was withdrawing. The losses were severe. Medieval accounts disagree on the number, but none dispute the rout. Saladin escaped with a small retinue. The invasion had failed. Baldwin returned to Jerusalem victorious. His illness continued to progress in the years that followed. Saladin would one day take Jerusalem, but not while Baldwin lived. Montgizard was a reversal no one expected. Not because 300 men defeated 20,000 alone, but because discipline struck at complacency. Timing broke numbers, and concentrated force overcame overconfidence. Sometimes, it is not the larger army that decides the outcome. It is the one that chooses when to strike.
At Montgizard, heat and terrain fractured a larger army. But sometimes the battlefield changes. Sometimes the enemy is not dust, but mud. In our next story, we leave the burning sands of Judea and step into the freezing rain of northern France. We trade heavy cavalry for longbows. We trade sun for storm. Agincourt, same principle, different battlefield. I'll see you there.